everybody. My name is Kevin Gray, publisher of Fierce Wireless, and I'm here with the Chief Operating Officer of Sterlite, Saikat Mitra. Saikat, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
Great. All right. So first things first, can you just first introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Sterlite?
So Sterlite is an industry-leading solution provider of digital networks. So our 5G digital network solutions help telcos, cloud companies, citizen networks, and large enterprises to provide enhanced experience to their customers and partners. So we do this from a range of services that we provide, from wired to wireless, design to deployment, connectivity to compute, through our wide range of portfolio that we have with the OSS BSS software, with network software, with virtualized access solutions, and the system integration. In Sterlite, we believe that in harnessing technology to create a world with next generation connected experiences that transform everyday living. I would find myself very fortunate to be part of this organization, which helps me to kind of have an impact of millions of lives every day. As a chief operating officer of the network software unit, I am responsible for the software business in Sterlite, who provides telco solutions to the service providers uh, to ensure that we have everything stacked for anything as a service economy. So I will get into the details in a bit later, but what essentially I believe is a unique selling point for ourselves is that apart from providing an end-to-end OSS BSS stack, we are able to also provide, let's say, plug and play offering, which typically operators are looking forward to in a multi-vendor ecosystem. And this is possible through our microservices enabled open architecture portfolio that we have. And if you look at the 5G era, which is the talk of the town now, and 5G monetization becomes an important aspect for an operator. And we believe that the OSS BSS evolution that is happening as I speak is an important factor for the success of the 5G. And the good news is that Sterlite software stack is actually already 5G ready. We have 50 plus OSS BSS solutions worldwide, and also 40 plus, let's say, Wi-Fi rollouts globally. So with this plethora of experience that we have working with tier one, tier two operators, and also the ever evolving portfolio that we believe we have a unique blend of experience and innovation.
Great. Okay. So that was a good thing to start us off there. Let's go ahead and set the stage and dive deeper into OSS BSS, right? So first off, What exactly is OSS BSS modernization? If you could start there, please.
So before I talk about the modernization piece, let me talk about the traditional implementation of the, let's say, the operations and business management systems that the network operators have been going through over the last several decades, right? So typically these deployments will be going for several years, will have a lot of duplicated function, there'll be multiple databases, there will be inefficient architecture. So this is because of the continuous patchwork that the operators went through over a period of several years. And now is the time where it's a very fast-moving economy, and operators wants to basically launch new services quick and fast. And that's where the challenge lies, that with this very kind of inefficient system, underlying system, BSS system that is there, it requires an evolution. It requires a modernization. So the question is that where do operators start that? So if you look at the advent of the 5G, there are five things I believe would help operator to be successful in a 5G era. So it's about business agility, it's about time to market, it's about being able to experiment and get things, let's say, tested faster, and low cost to serve, and then of course enhancing the customer experience. So these are the five things I believe would be important for an operator's success in the 5G space. And CSPs globally have realized that the traditional OSS BSS wouldn't help them reach where they want to reach. So like I said, in the past, it was like rip and replace, which is to take multiple years and most often than not wouldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. At the moment, the operators are taking a very careful approach of quick hit optimization of the existing OSS basis system, looking at the open architecture in certain parts in a journey, picking up the right digital services and the customer experience platforms to use the microservices and the open architecture to deploy those and get quick results, and then slowly create a path towards the modernization. And at STL, what we believe is that with our stack that we have created over the last couple of years, we have helped a few operators to actually embrace this journey successfully. And we believe we have the experience and the portfolio to do that for several other operators in the ecosystem.
Okay, great. So I think you hinted at this a little bit when you're talking about spinning up services and stuff. But my next logical question there is sort of the importance of all this in 5G, and why is OSS BSS transformation a crucial step for 5G monetization in particular?
Sure. I think it's a very pertinent question, because typically what we see is when we talk about 5G, it's all about better speed or exceptional latency and quality, let's say quality of service. But we often forget that 5G is actually giving us or giving operators some new innovative ideas, new innovative models in which they can, let's say, provide uh, services and benefit out of providing the services by monetizing those services using a partner ecosystem. So collaboration with partners has become more important than ever. And that's where the transition of being a communication service provider to a digital service provider is the journey that any operator in the 5G space would take. And in this scenario, I think it's extremely important that we realize that the next generation OSS BSS is what will help the operators move, transform this communication service provider, let's say current scenario, to a digital service provider platform in the future. Recently, I read let's say an article in PM Forum where they say 72% of the 5G revenue growth will be dependent on how the OSS BSS evolution is successful, right? So I think accelerating 5G monetization growth depends uh, quite a bit on the way the BSS OSS works seamlessly in a multi-vendor ecosystem and with zero-touch operations. So this is for me the crux of the success of 5G revenue growth, which is directly linked to the OSS basis modernization.
Okay, great. So as you mentioned, there's really going to be endless possibilities and opportunities. That's kind of what I got from that as it relates to 5G, right? So
Absolutely.
what is STL's play from all this in a software perspective? You said you run the software business, right? Can you help break that down for us?
I think to maximize the 5G deployment for an operator, I think they have to move up the value chain in terms of the services that they're providing to the end customers. So what I mean by that is, for example, typically when we talk about network evolution, we talk about, okay, this particular network evolution, like I said, provides high speed, very high, extreme performance of latency and quality of service. But that is only about connectivity. Then how do I go up the value chain? So 5G actually enables you to move up the value chain of providing connectivity as a service. Then moving up to say, okay, in my platform, I actually invite partners to use this, high connectivity to actually deploy and implement new services which helps their customers. So it's like B2B to X kind of a model in which this entire ecosystem is moving. And again, one of the analysts says that 60% of the operators who have taken this 5G journey are already onboarded. They don't have any idea of how to actually monetize this. And that's where we believe is where people like us who understands this because of our experience working in this space would be able to help these operators to tap this untapped, let's say, business opportunity that is in their ecosystem by providing this seamless transition from a communication service provider to a kind of a digital service provider.
Okay, so the next question I have for you is, I think I heard you say at some point something in the name of like the age of now economy, right? Can you help us break that down? What you mean by revenue multiplier and the age of now economy, please?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's one of my favorites actually. So if you look at, let's say, the current ecosystem where the end, let's say if I look at myself or even you, I mean, whenever we look at getting some services from an operator, we look at a fixed consumption pattern, and we say, okay, at the end of the month, I spend this much of bandwidth, or I do this much of calling time, and I get paid, right? But now it is moving away from that kind of a fixed consumption pattern to more like a flexible consumption pattern. So gone are the days where you can have kind of fixed, let's say, services that are given to the end customers. Now they are basically expecting that whenever I want something, I hook onto it, and based on the consumption, I pay. So this is the anything as a service kind of a model, we call it, which is in short form called XaaS. So that's where I think we are talking about that this XaaS, that kind of anything as a service, if operators have to maximize this, that's where they have to realize that they have a unique opportunity to monetize this using maybe a portion of the current monetization platforms that they have, with taking this leapfrog, using, let's say, state of the art portfolio items, like for example Sterlite has, to be able to untap this challenge.
No, totally agree. Services have never been more important, really, when it comes to monetization and getting everything you can out of 5G. Okay, so next, let's talk a little bit about your overall strategy here. So, what is STL's future OSS BSS strategy, and where do you see the trends of OSS BSS technology development going?
If you look at the underlying mantra of the Sterlite's latest portfolio, we call it the NSW 2.0, Network Software 2.0. The entire mantra is based about, like I mentioned, everything stack as a for anything as a service economy. So what it means is basically to tap this XaaS or anything as a service model, where we can basically help the operators maximize the investment they have done on the network monetization and on onboarding partners in the ecosystem, so that we can generate more revenue streams in the operator's environment. So how do we do this? So apart from the functionality of providing this kind of use cases, I think it's important to understand, like I mentioned before, that it is not about rip and replace. So there will be an existing traditional ecosystem, and then on top of it, we will be having some adjunct or some kind of overlay solutions which has to work. And this has to work in a multi-vendor environment. And like I mentioned before, our microservices-based open architecture, using, for example, artificial intelligence in our analytics platform, or let's say edge computing. These are some of the things that we have used in our stack to ensure that we provide a state of the art architecture and the foundation for us to build this kind of added functionality on top of the operators, let's say, current OSS basis platform. And the other thing I want to let's say, re-emphasize is that this is possible through also not only the open architecture, but this open architecture should be supported by open APIs, because I mentioned that our integration has to be flexible enough to work with multiple vendors with some standardized APIs. And that's where this open API concept has been used very extensively across our portfolio, whether it is let's say the end-to-end OSS-based solution, we call it the D telco, or to an enterprise-specific, let's say, portfolio item like the D enterprise, or to one of our new product development ideas on the enterprise marketplace. The entire thing has been built on an open API, open architecture-based model to give us this flexibility to work on a multi-vendor and a let's say, partner ecosystem. Now, this is not it alone. Like they say today, in this current economy where it's like constantly changing, with operators kind of outsourcing some of its traditional infrastructure to the hyperscalers, I think it was important for us to make the portfolio cloud native, and this we have taken by complying ourselves to the cloud native computing foundation, we call the CNCF, where we are certified all our portfolio items using the CNCF success criteria. Apart from that, our entire Wi-Fi suite is wireless broadband alliance, let's say compatible, and also our APIs are standardized across the board, starting from the engagement layer to the product catalog to the billing. Everywhere, wherever you're using APIs, these are standard set of APIs which are TM Forum compliant. So if I look at the NSW or the network software portfolio, usage of this kind of standardized model, using of open database, and also the advanced analytics and the let's say machine learning algorithm that we are using, we believe that it also allows the platform to be adhering to strict GDPR compliance, which is also one of the very important aspects when you're talking about seeing your products work in a economy like Europe or in the US, where this becomes very important. So, in short, I think the entire portfolio of network software has been built to be able to work seamlessly to help operators take this journey from where they are today to actually monetize the opportunities that they have with the different revenue streams that come their way.
Great. All right, so I have time for one last question here, Saikat. I think I'm going to have to tee it up for you here nicely. When I think of STL, I think of you guys as being an innovative company in this space, right? I'm guessing you probably do too. Can you perhaps just paint a better picture for us of STL's network software innovation, and really, what does that mean for CSPs, and how can they benefit from some of those innovative solutions?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned before, Starlight's DNA is about technology and innovation, and we cannot stop innovating, right? Even during these tough times when we had, of course, challenges of reaching the end customers physically and going and actually seeing and doing some things together with the customer, we utilized this time to also kind of work on certain new product development ideas. So I think I talked about this enterprise platform, which is called the Enterprise Marketplace, which is something that we have used to help partners, the operators to work with their partners and their customers to build a collaboration monetization platform, which is simplified like never before. So this is something which is very unique, and we also have let's say proof of concepts that we are running with a few operators in Asia Pac and in India. Then this entire the journey about I talked about the modernization journey. We had to, of course, embrace the agile methodology also, not only with our end customers but also the way we are developing our products. So that the automated deployment using the safe agile framework to be able to deploy releases to our end customers, let's say seamlessly while the portfolio development is happening. So that's something that I believe is also quite mature, and we are using all, let's say, standardized tools, open source technologies to achieve that, right? Then we have this something called an STL API manager. So basically what this API manager does is to, like I mentioned, that all the interfaces that we have, whether it's an internal interfaces of our engagement platform talking to the different channels, or the engagement platform talking to the downstream systems, order management, service provisioning, the entire gamut of interfaces that we have built are all standardized through this STL API manager, we call it. And not only it helps us internally, but also to integrate to some third-party vendors, where, for example, for whatever reason, the customer had decided to continue with that stack. So we, like I said, we are building capabilities on top of the existing ecosystem of the partners and our customers, so that there is no concept of rip and replace in the current situation, right? Now, the other thing I want to talk about is within the engagement platform and the catalog, which is the commercial sales catalog, which is extremely important when the customers are operators are trying to launch new services quickly. I think that is something that we believe we have brought some cool stuff like supporting flexible customer journey modeling, and also to provide template-driven customer commercial catalog. So these are some two cool features, I believe, which will also help the operators to build a kind of overlay solution on top of the current ecosystem. I think I didn't talk much about our Wi-Fi portfolio, so let me give you a few insights about that. So as we all know, that whenever we go to, let's say, for example, to a mall or to a stadium or something, of course we have our data network that we hook onto. But typically when we go to the places, we always try to hook onto a hotspot, right? Because we expect that hotspot will give me better connectivity, reliable, whatever data speed that I'm expecting, etc., etc. So with that keeping in mind, the STL Wi-Fi solution is built upon providing a Wi-Fi service management platform, which is at the moment the latest release is actually also taking advantage of the state-of-the-art evolution of the Wi-Fi technology like Wi-Fi 6, the Hotspot 2.0, and the open roaming to not only provide, let's say, increased coverage and user experience, but also seamlessly connectivity on the go, which is something that we always love to do, so that I don't need to switch between different technologies while I'm on the go. Finally, I want to talk about another very important item, which is, in my view, also something that we brought about in the current version of the release, is the policy control and charging. So 5G is here today, and there are deployments happening worldwide, as we know. But the control and charging framework has to be also addressed in smarter ways. So, for example, remove the unnecessarily load on the signaling, for example, and provide ease of operation at the same time. So our DPCC, which is called the Digital Policy Control and Charging, is 5G enabled, and it's a convergent rating, charging, and policy engine solution that we have, in which we are providing um, real-time policy, let's say, policy engine, which also work with the charging at a single instance. So this is something which is also compliant to the 3GPP R15 and the 5G NSA, which is kind of some standards that one ought to comply to if you're looking at, let's say, making your policy control and charging work in a 5G ecosystem. So in short, if I have to say that it's a plethora of new products that we have brought in. Of course, we have modernized the classic BSS OS stack to work in a 5G era. So it's a collection of something new, something old, but let's say a bit more modernized, so that it works in a new, let's say, challenging environment of let's say 5G space. And I believe this is something that seeing is believing, and I really encourage our customers, our partners to try this portfolio, try a demo, try a proof of concept, and see what is in it. And I can assure you, and you can trust me on this, that it will be something that will be worth your time and attention.
And I think that's a great way to wrap up. That's all the time we have for today. Saikat, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to have you back soon.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.